Yes, we are back. Welcome to That Davis Show. I am Kenneth Davis. Follow me at That's Davis. And of course, executive producer of That Davis and Flippin' Friends is Ryan Book. And basically follow him at Ryan B. Ski or Ryan B. Ski 1. We got a lot to dive into today. The off tops ones, I won't say it's sad, but it was like, dang, when you saw it. And then another one was like, brother, you better get on the giddy up. So definitely that'll be entertaining. We got a lot of basketball to talk about with these NBA playoffs and everything that's been taking place, the shakeups, the blowouts. We definitely have some football with OTAs taking place at Hallis Hall. There was a presser today. Matt Nagy, Andy Dalton, Jermaine Irfetti, and David Montgomery all talked at the presser. We got a lot of baseball. Both teams are number one in their divisions. So we got a lot to jump on and talk about, and it feels like it's been a second. So let's dive straight into it and let's go off top.
Off
the tippy. Taking it from the top, the tippy. Oh, my people. Coach K, Weber's Chicago's very own Mike Krzyzewski is stepping away after this upcoming season from college basketball with 5 championships just behind John Wooden. Another Chicago resident, I guess, is this why? John Shire, former Duke player and elite recruiter, I believe, seems to be next up. They said they talked about Tommy Amaker and a couple other guys. Amaker, I believe, is at Harvard now. Yeah, Coach K, when I saw that, I said, whoa, I wasn't expecting that, even though I've been thinking about it. And it had been on my mind, I have to admit, recently, like, man, I wonder when Coach K is going to pull away with his age. I didn't see it happening after next season. But you know, maybe he has a lot of life that he wants to live away from just basketball. We know he no longer does Team USA. But yeah, that was a big one. Life's going to be different without Coach K. Like, he's basically been a Duke my entire life. You know what I'm saying? And Duke has played. If you're a fan, if you're not, I know this is like someone talking about. I like the Cubs and the Sox. I like Duke and North Carolina. I love North Carolina because 23, but I love Duke because Coach K's a Chicago dude. So I always kind of like Duke too. I liked how he revamped himself, even though sometimes it definitely comes off as a bit pompous. But looking at someone who didn't like the one and dones to someone who used it for his benefit. But look, you still got to admire the fact that he got it done. But now, and it's funny, now that kids, what we think in the future are going to have to stay in college at least 2 to 3 years, you would think for someone who didn't enjoy the one and dones that Coach K would look at that as a chance to get back to what he really enjoys. But again, with his being in his 70s, Coach K decides to step away. Now we got basically is Jim Boeheim, because like you look at Roy stepped away, like all the coaches that you're used to growing up are retiring. Man, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And this is the NBA when Pop retires. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just like, man, who are these coaches? I don't know these. It's so unfair. And then we'll talk about it later. You got these coaches who stuck it out, all right, and won at their programs. But a coach at a mid-majors getting promoted, that got a job in the NBA, now it's getting bumped up into the front office and hasn't done enough. But that's on a whole nother note. Celtics talk later on. But yeah, it's kind of bittersweet having someone who is a legendary coach and has coached throughout your lifetime, and you've enjoyed the players that have come through his program. To now say that he's stepping away. I wasn't expecting seeing that today. How did you feel, Ryan, when you saw that Coach K was stepping down after this upcoming season?
I like the Chicago connection. I kind of was texting you like, this is all just whatever to me. And I get it. He's a legend and we should give him some time and talk about him. But just personally, this is just me talking on the right side of the screen or your left. College basketball, when it's already college basketball, and I don't really even like how it's set up, because I don't think 18-year-olds should be forced to go into the NBA. And just some of those things.
You mean to go to college should be not forced to go to college?
Or yes, not be forced to go to college, then be allowed to go to the NBA if they can. And a lot of them certainly can go into the NBA right away, and they're forced to go through this one and done. It's going to stink, I think, a little bit to lose, that cornerstone, that nostalgia of college basketball, because certainly Duke and Coach K are that. And I just kept honestly thinking about Shire. Like, I just remember, I think I was in high school just reading his Mr. Illinois. Mr. Illinois basketball that year, and then how he was committed to Duke and all that stuff. And I remember just kind of watching him because he was from, I believe, the like a surrounding area of where I grew
Mhm.
up. So it wasn't like he was in a random part of the state that I had no connection with whatsoever. And just to hear that he's, the guy, I really love our guy Brandon Pope's little tweet where he was talking about in a few years, watch as that old mid-major coach you were just referencing in Boston, maybe potentially coming down for the head coaching job. But it sounds like Shire is going to be the heir apparent from everything we're hearing. That's going to be quite the responsibility. And I just wonder how college basketball might change a little bit, because I think sometimes, like North Carolina, they're still North Carolina, but they've had a dip ever since they lost some of their big time coaches. And that allowed other programs to kind of raise up. And I wonder with Duke's dip, does that mean other programs kind of start gaining up or something like that?
Well, actually, this is a funny thing. Now, under Roy Williams, North Carolina is actually championship-wise was more successful than they won under Dean Smith, because Roy won 3, right? I think Dean only won 2. They beat Michigan, and the one that Jordan won with the shot. The one Chris Webber took the timeout when John Lynch was on that team. But this is the thing, and you kind of alluded to it this point. The being the guy that follows the guy usually doesn't work. The same thing happened with Dean after Dean Smith left, and was it Gunther Cunningham, I believe, was the coach after him, the assistant that got promoted. And then you look at this, and you look at how long it took to finally Dean Smith had to call Roy Williams and tell him it's time to come home, and that's when he left Kansas and came back to UNC. I'm worried now that what happens when you have Hubert Davis. I'm not saying that he won't keep Duke at the level that it's at right now, but you have him coming in after Roy Williams and John Shire, we assume, coming in after Coach K, having those two blue bloods down at the same time, because usually while one was going through something, the other one was a top 5 team. So it's going to be weird on Tobacco Road to have both programs at this phase, because even though North Carolina went through coaching changes, Duke didn't at all through this period. So that's where being a fan of ACC basketball at times, I'm concerned. And again, now if Brad Stevenson's up down there in a few seasons, and he can recapture what he had at Butler, but do it on a grander scheme, I'll be pleased with that, even though bump Brad Stevens right now. Yeah.
Why? I can't wait to hear this, because I thought it would be bump Danny Ainge.
No, we'll save this one. We got one more. We got one more off top. All right, so let's kick it to the next off top. Off top. All right. I know Anthony Davis is hurt, and Dennis Schroeder with the goose egg, but who really believes in Dennis Schroeder being dependable? People, don't give me all this Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder refused $80 million. You should have never offered Dennis Schroeder 80. When they offered him $80 million, I was like, you're going to regret that. Like, if you really think Dennis Schroeder is the third of your big three consistently, you didn't watch no Atlanta basketball over the last decade. I know he played well for the Thunder, but come on now. When you're talking about a big three, or you're trying to get a big three, Dennis Schroeder needs to be your Lou Williams, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like that. That's
Isn't
kind
that
of
what he really is? Like, he's not a three. He's just, you'll take what he can get if you got two dominant twos.
But exactly. But people are using him to cover for LBJ. Listen, I love LeBron James, but let's call it how we see it. You cannot be one of the greatest players, and don't hit me with, well, he's not a scorer. That mother scores. All right. Like, don't run that right now. You cannot sit there and be a game away from elimination and only put up 24 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds, and only take 19 shots, especially for someone who's improved his 3-point shooting towards the latter end of his career. Like, even if we could say, man, LeBron being lazy, he's not going to the hole. You at one point, you just have to take the ball over and do work. And let's not act like we haven't seen him do it at times, but still be a LeBron player who makes sometimes the good play, but I'm getting mines. All right. Like, we saw that in Cleveland when Kyrie would be hot as you know what, and LeBron to come down there and do a heat check. He'd be like, LeBron, wait, you wasn't even hot. Why are you doing a heat check during Kyrie's run, right? Like, LeBron, I'm gonna get some of this too. So, and
I'm catching it.
I'm saying listen, I would say this for any player that I like in general. Dog, you can't go out like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't. And I know he's hurt. I know LeBron is not the same with the high ankle sprain, but this last couple of games, his explosiveness is better than what it was. I won't say that it's back to where it was, but it's definitely better than what it was the first game in this series where he had no lift whatsoever. You know what I'm saying? He was layup James at the beginning of the series. Now he's back to putting some yaks and some yaks and some yaks. Dude, you either got to get in the post and do your dizzle, or you got to sit there and you got to attack from the outside. But that 19 shots was not enough. You basically folded. Let's just be honest with you. Folded up. You was like, whatever, it's gone. I'm not gonna go for it. Now listen, if you sit there and you take this series, whatever. But if you lose, it's still like, come on, man, you're greater than this. You know what I'm saying? So I get it. You're down, but at certain points, you got to show why you're one of the greatest to ever do it. If not, some people would say the greatest, because he's not that type of player. Nah, this dude scores. He's definitely a playmaker. I'm gonna give, but let's not act like he's not a scorer too. And this was a time for him to put on the scoring hat and go to work. Even if he failed, you got to go out shooting.
You know what I like about that? Like, yes, LeBron is not a scorer, and anybody that comes with that, I would say, what do we praise LeBron most of all? It's his mental acumen at basketball. You knew going into that game you needed superstar LeBron to have any chance to win that game. And when he didn't really want to drive to the hole, and when he's not really shooting, and a bunch of other guys, even if it's Dennis Schroeder who's giving you nothing, like, you gotta bring it exactly like what you're saying. It is time for, or at least in that game, and especially moving forward, you need superstar LeBron all the rest of the way. Otherwise, your season's done unless somehow AD comes back for some kind of reason and is effective.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has to come back. But to your point, dog, you're LeBron James. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to snap. It's just, again, snap and fail. I don't care if you went 9 for 29 instead of 9 for 19, but the fact that you went for it, like, if he snaps and fails, we're making excuses, and I'm not saying they're the legitimate excuses, but we're like, man, we know LeBron isn't healthy right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, he couldn't get off. You know, AD's not out there. We be putting it on Dennis. I would easily say Dennis Schroeder needed to do more if LeBron had filled up the level that he needed to fill up, and then you add that Schroedernicity on top of that, right? But LeBron didn't fill up his level. So even though Dennis Schroeder failed, it's not as important as the stud. And Frank Vogel, of course, didn't do a great job when it comes to coaching. But listen, even when people use that, and again, if we're talking about defensive schemes, cool. LeBron James has basically said he's the coach half the damn time anyway. All right? Like, so outside of the Montrezl Harrell situation about substitutions, now I don't know about the control he may have the substitutions, but the play on the court, LeBron's going to do what he really wants to do regardless. All right, he's the point. So that's where it's just like, again, I'm not dissing his career. This doesn't change his greatness, but it's like, dude, you got to come harder than that. And it's okay to say that, for instance, I like LeBron James, but he didn't step up to this game. It doesn't change his career. I'm just stating facts.
You know how sensitive they get, though. You're coming after our guy.
Oh, well, get over it. Get over it.
I mean, you're completely right. If they're going to beat the Suns, superstar LeBron better be wearing the cape rest of the way.
Dude, you don't even got 100% Chris Paul out here. Like, Shuddy out here with one wing, basically.
Every other time I flip the channel, he's like grabbing his shoulder and running to the bench.
So, like, come on now. I get it, but we got DeAndre Ayton, who's playing kind of like the player that we thought he was coming out of Arizona, and you got Booker going mad, right? But you should be able to fit that bit. That's like, this isn't him taking on like Dame or like Utah, you know what I'm saying, or Denver. You know, and I'm not dissing Phoenix and saying that Phoenix can't go further. And I even say that now, if you had totally sound Chris Paul, then I'm all the way with you. But when you got hurt Chris Paul and he seemed like he re-injured his shoulder last night, dog, that matchup, you should be able to step up to that matchup, man. These aren't a juggernaut. And I know they had a terrific record this season. It's not, you didn't run into a buzzsaw. This is doable. You know what I'm saying? Especially with the great attributes that you've been blessed with.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking Lakers for sure winning after Game 3, or I'm sorry, was it Game 4 when they took the? Oh no, Game 3 when they took a 2-1 lead. We were all saying game over, series over, Lakers win, and AD gets hurt. Like, you're the buzzsaw, you're the juggernaut, not the Phoenix Suns. I get it, losing AD, that's tough, but man, like, it's all about superstar talent in the playoffs. We know that, and you got to have superstar LeBron. Period. End of story.
You have to. But while we're still talking basketball, let's switch off and talk about some of these playoffs, man. They've definitely been exciting, or sometimes frustrating. You look at what happened with Joel Embiid. You know what I'm saying?
That is frustrating.
A slightly torn meniscus that came out and said today, be day to day. They're trying to get the swelling down. That was a nasty tumble that he had. And you just think about the fact that he's the Sixers engine and how well they look this year. And basically without him, they're done for. You look at the fact that I wish Bucks Nets was the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah, me too.
Like, that's my own. If I have a problem, that's my only problem.
Any chance Joel could be ready for the conference finals? Can they get by?
He's not going to stay healthy. If he has a torn meniscus, that thing's going to flare up on him. All right, there's going to be some bone on bone some nights that he feels. It's just, I mean, it's just the wrong time of the year to get an injury like that. You know what I'm saying? So also for a guy that we know lumbers, even though, you know, he's athletically gifted to be that big, but moves a lot to be that big. It'd be different if he was just a back you down post guy and you like just hit him with the drop step, you know, like, but we're talking about a guy that's taking people off the dribble doing Euro steps at 7 feet, 300 pounds. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're just a lot, or 280 or whatever. That's a lot to put on. That's a lot of weight on a gentleman.
And he's had a lot of leg issues, period, since he's come out of college.
So that one I hate, especially when it's already seemed like it was a fait accompli that the Wizards were out of it, right? Like, if the Wizards come around and they're able to now, because Joel Embiid is out, come back from 3-1, which I don't think they should be. I think Doc Rivers should be able to pull this out even without Embiid. But I mean, they still have enough games to where he should be able to come back. If not this, he's not playing tonight, but the next game or the game after. So if they end up 3-3, perhaps for Game 7, Joel Embiid will come back. But the worst part about that is then the turnaround. You're playing the next team that you have to play, and you would rather have him rest. But they should be able to get one out of the next 3 without Joel Embiid. But Ben Simmons, man, that last game, for all the Ben Simmons haters, you're looking good right now. When that last game, man, like the fact that Ben Simmons, man, and I was a person where I at times I like Ben Simmons, but his reluctance to shoot, it'll be different. Again, it kind of goes with the LeBron thing, and I'm not dissing LeBron. I'm not comparing them to each other. But the fact that Ben Simmons won't shoot, period, is just, that's different. All right. That's different, right? Like that's it's okay to be a bad shooter, but take the attempts. I remember Ryan Jefferson. Is it Ryan Jefferson that used to play for the Nets?
Richard Jefferson.
Thank you. Richard Jefferson. I can't remember what coach he was talking about, but he said that the coach told him basically, you know, every game take a 3. I need you to take a couple of 3s just so you can start getting used to it, but also you got to keep that guy honest. And even though you're not a 3-point shooter, it's going to help you basically in your career, which it did, because he wasn't a guy that you cared if he took a 3. And, you know, towards the middle of his career, you would come out a little bit more if he was taking that 3 because he was knocking more of them down. The fact that he just won't do it at all, it's like, son, you killing the vibes right now, son. Like, you're killing the vibes. So yeah, if Washington can come back, it's not going to feel like, oh yeah, they really came back. It's not even just they really came back. It's also going to be like, whoever they take on in the next round, you're going to be like, they're going to spank Washington because Washington shouldn't even be here. So it's not the interest that you would necessarily have, because what they will be taking on, who do they take on in the next? They take on Atlanta or the Knicks. Is that who?
And Atlanta is up. Here,
so
I'll
the
show
Atlanta.
you the playoff bracket right there, up to date.
So,
By the way, right now the Sixers are up 17 with about 5:15 left in the fourth quarter.
all right, that's what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear. So I'm so looking at it. Oh, you know what? I have to take that back. I know Atlanta's talented and has a better or overall roster than also with Bertans being out for the rest of the playoffs. But Russ and Bradley Beal may be able to take on Atlanta. That may be a matchup thing with them versus Atlanta. So let me reverse that when I say that the Wizards don't have a chance. But looking at the Sixers, man, I mean, if they can do it, if they can get to the next round and Embiid can be 70%, he's going to be a problem from those bigs. I don't care what Clint Capella could do, and Collins. He's going to be he's going to be a big time problem defensively. When you look defensively at Ben Simmons and being able to switch off and perhaps being able to slow down Trae Young. But yeah, that this series isn't what it would be. This series and the next, when we're talking about Philadelphia and the Wizards or whoever Atlanta faces from that series that I just mentioned. It's definitely not as appealing as Nets, Milwaukee, especially with what Milwaukee has been doing, man. Milwaukee, you wouldn't expect this from Milwaukee, especially when the Bogdanovich trade failed. You were basically like, damn, Giannis, you should have signed that contract because it's not going to work. Who thought Chris Middleton was finally going to do what we all wanted him to do? Like, we've always been like, Chris Middleton, you a 3. You're not a number 2, son. You a 3. Shawty went off last year in the playoffs, and we was like, damn, if only he could do that all the time. And now you see him starting to do that all the time. So now Giannis has a real Robin, and then you throw Drew Holiday in on that. And again, a player like Bobby Portis. Bobby Portis is perfect for a team like that. You want a crazy big who's nasty and can knock down threes. Oh, he's perfect for a team like that. Like when he got there, I was like, oh, that's a fit right there. You guys.
Budenholzer was like, what's the crazy level on this man? Okay, I like it.
And PJ Tucker, I mean, and especially the mismatch that, PJ Tucker playing how well he played bigs, but now you had an option to have it and how well he knocks down that corner 3. You had an option to where he doesn't necessarily have to play the big, but he can play the big. And you got, it's just, I didn't know these parts were going to do what they're doing, especially with people kind of looking at Budenholzer like, dude, you better start getting it done because you're the one that they can move after signing Giannis to this money. But let me be truly honest. I want to see the Bucks make it out.
I'm starting to like the Bucks.
Yeah,
I'm really starting to like them.
Yeah, the Nets, it'll be cool. But man, they haven't even been together all year. Like, it's just if they had played
they're just
together,
like the free pass squad. Steve Nash with his free pass, James Harden free pass, Kevin Durant free. It's like it's just too perfect and too much. Just like everything's all hunky dory and everybody's just getting what they want out of this. It's hard to, I think, wrap yourself around that team and get excited versus like Milwaukee, who's been paying their dues for a while. And like you said, they've actually added the type of pieces that gets you excited because they built a team around Giannis. I don't know if like Brooklyn has obviously all that skill, but outside of the skill, I don't think they're very lovable.
Yeah, I'm not even a hater on them, but it's just still like since they haven't had a season together, it's not as appealing to me. But I want to see, did you see this one? Did you see this today? I'm going to put it up to the screen. This is Ethan Thomas. Scoop B sent me this. This is Ethan Thomas, former Washington Wizards, posted this on Instagram. Did you see this? The sound on there. So it's Kyrie Irving's head superimposed on Michael Jackson's body, and he's doing the nasty step that Michael Jackson did, but it's on the Celtics logo and like it's on center court. Listen, did you see the one
Internet once again?
Right. Well, did you see the one where it's like an explosion in front of it's like somebody's house or something, burn it down, and Kyrie's face is superimposed, turn it back, grinning or whatever, and it's like job finally done. Oh, I know we're just talking about the Nets versus the Bucks, But it crossed my mind. And I know we're going to talk about the Celtics a little bit later, but I had to let you see that one. But yeah, it's still, and I'm not the man, you guys shouldn't be coming together like this guy, even though it's like, damn, how big of a hammer do you need? And I'm of course referring to the Nets. But still, it just doesn't feel right now because I didn't see them play this year, and it's just proof that like once you amass this much talent, regardless if they've never played together, of course these are basketball savants. Like, this is basketball IQ to another level when you're talking about these players.
You don't become a superstar or considered a really star player if you don't have that basketball IQ. Like maybe some guys can just purely get away with athletics
for a certain amount of time.
Right.
Yeah.
But for the most part, that acumen is developing along with your athletics. And a few years into the league, especially all these veteran guys, like I'm not surprised. And a lot of times they scrimmage with each other in the offseason. So it's not like they haven't fully played with each other.
It's the most skilled big three ever, I think. Like skill. I'm not on top of the physical. I mean, Kevin Garnett is a condor. You know what I'm saying? And you could diss James Harden, but you can't move him off his spot. But skill-wise, these guys are freaky deaky at the skill level that they have. But like, again,
Golden State, they had maybe the shooting as the trio that was better. But in terms of the Nets,
who's the big
James
three?
Harden is
Golden State. Who's the big three? Real quick.
Clay, KD, and Steph. So that combined skill of shooting is probably better than any big three ever. Yeah. But in terms of skills, I agree with you that I think the Nets are the best because you've got that scorer with KD, but then they're all obviously scorers. But Kyrie is such a finisher and just a total just magician with that basketball. And then you got Harden, the facilitator, with the ability to score and just basically get to the lane whenever he needs to or the line. They've got like the amount of skills is greater than any three. If maybe Golden State shooting was the best of any type of skill period for a big three.
I was going to see, this is why I asked you who were your big three with Golden State, because you had to put in Clay, but if you put in Draymond, because again, the playmaking aspect. So you're talking about with the Nets, all three of them are playmakers. I mean, KD is so efficient that even, not to say that he's not a playmaker, but he's a playmaker because he's not even gunning and he's going to make the right play. Kyrie and James Harden are facilitators, and even though James Harden is basically their point, but you still see what they do. It's just super freaky, to say the least. It's pleasant, you know. But right now, and let me get it all the way back to what I was saying initially. Having counted the Bucks out, I think after what happened in the bubble last year and what the Heat did to them, we basically thought it was broken. We thought that Giannis's streak of, and it will be broken, as winning MVPs was over, but not just his streak, his chances to win MVPs will be over because he would have to make it to a finals, if not win a finals, to be back to be a guaranteed MVP again, because people are basically going to be like, yeah, we've seen you dominate the regular season and win the MVP, but you've never done it in the postseason, so you're not the MVP. Like it has happened and it will happen. So for him to do what he's done, and for those players to jump in that bandwagon and ride along and improve, especially Chris Middleton, his own play, and for Budenholzer to figure out and get that defense going in the way that it's been playing, I'm rooting for him. And for the last weeks, they're my team. They're the team I want to win the title, I would say.
No, I can't believe I'm saying that too. I think they're the team I want to win.
I want to, because in all fairness, I no longer want the Clippers to win an NBA title. That's just the truth. I don't trust them. The fact that Luka has to have a neck issue for you to defeat him, like these guys aren't beating the Dallas. Like, if you hear everyone talking like, yeah, they got Dallas's number. Yeah, of course. If your stud superstar's neck is jacked up, of course they're going to.
Wasn't that part of the problem last year for the Clippers that like? Kawhi's legs weren't fully there, and that's why, so it's the same thing whether you're talking about Luka.
So, and listen, Kawhi and PG have been playing, you know, but it's just something about that squad now where it's like, I don't want to put. I don't want to put any faith.
Though it's PG is what's got us really.
He's a large, but you know what? I won't even just say that. I like Kawhi a lot. if not, may love Kawhi, but I need more for that salary. Everyone knows your best player doesn't necessarily have to be your leader, but you still need your best player to set the tone, and not just by actions, but set the tone really with his voice, and unify the team. He doesn't have to be the grand unifier, but he has to be one of them, one of the head ones, especially if he's given fringe benefits, as we know was part of the issue that the team had last year, even though what was reported, it was more the fact that Paul George was getting those same benefits and teammates didn't view him on the level of a Kawhi Leonard as they shouldn't. But I just don't trust that team. The West, man, you're looking at, the coming out party by John Morant. And I mean, for guys like us who wanted the Bulls to get him some seasons back, we wanted, but the coming out party that, of course, they're going to lose to the Jazz. But man, that team went from Jared Jackson Jr. to his so quick.
Isn't that the problem right there, Jaren Jackson? We kind of looking at him.
He's not healthy. He hasn't been healthy. And also the question was always how to implement him. And I think part of the problem is now you kind of thought the offense. You kind of thought you had your pick and roll game together, your traditional big and a point guard, but you didn't think the point guard was this dominant. I mean, you can't hold back him. You'd be doing a disservice to your team by holding John Morant back. He's just all that in a bag of chips. You know what I'm saying? So that's where it's just like you got to refigure it. But also, Jared Jackson has to be healthy. And I haven't watched enough regular season Grizzly games to really put my finger on it. But really, majority of the games that I watched, he wasn't healthy anyway. But I did his rookie season, love his skill set, being that big, athletic, and being able to knock down that three. I was leery initially a little bit coming out of Michigan State, but I felt like he proved me wrong. But yeah, that you got to get somebody else down there with John Morant, because I'll tell you what, if you don't. After the first 4 years of that second deal,
Arturas, start getting that contract ready, baby.
Dude, I mean,
we know Memphis ain't bringing anybody in. They don't bring nobody in unless they're a draft pick.
How can you consistently lose the ball but not lose the ball in the lane in the manner that he does, by throwing it between his legs, throwing it past defenders' arms, and re-grabbing the ball? No, I didn't mean to say re-grabbing the ball, but
But his reaction is insane.
Yes, his quick twitch, and also his basketball IQ. It's just
all that in reaction. He can react mentally and physically.
Shout out to his pops, who has been his primary trainer. You did a damn good job with that young man, man. Shorty is he's
Ken, I want to see the salute, the Ken salute to Mr. Morant. Oh, yep.
Dude,
bonafide right there.
This is when you start to make your name. All right, when in the playoffs, remember the Celtics beat the Bulls. What was it? Was it 86? I believe. And when Jordan, when Larry Bird was like, Jordan, and I'm paraphrasing this, is Jesus Christ in gym shoes. Listen, they beat the Bulls, but that performance was like, whoa, man. Right. John Morant has going on right now. And still, speaking of whoa, listen, I went to Adidas website today. So I know last year y'all did that deal when Dame scored that 60-something in the lows, because I bought a pair of those Dame dollar Adidas for 60-something for the low. I was like, y'all gonna do it for the 55? Right? I showed on the website today.
Too low.
Listen, damn it, Dame. Like, goodness gracious, young man. Listen, I hate to say it, but how dare you be so nice with like Damian Lillard? And again, it was a loss. I love what he said about that loss to the Nuggets. Shout out to Joker and Michael Porter Jr. with what they're doing with Murray being out. But man, dang, you got to listen, dog.
That series,
it's so bad. It's so bad because he was hurt this year, and I like the professionalism. I love who he's going to be post NBA career as a talking head. I'm talking about CJ McCollum, but I've said this for years. You got to move, shorty. right? Like because y'all listen. I'll be honest with you. Damian Lillard should walk into that office and be like, "Trade
Get
me,
him out.
trade me."
But
Right? You're lucky he right now. Excuse me. He's more like an old school player. More like, and I don't know if it'll ever happen. He'll ask for a trade, but I'll say more like a Kevin Garnett. Well, may wish that he
how about a
asked for
Derrick
that trade.
Rose?
Yeah, but I mean, Derek wasn't the same. You know what I'm saying?
I'm just
By the
talking when
time,
he was still elite
yeah,
and didn't want to recruit. Kind of
right,
old school a little bit.
yeah, it's kind of old school. But I'm even just saying it from the point of saying I want out with Dame. Like, listen, I've done all I can do for this organization. I deserve a chance to get a bite of the championship, and how we're configured right now, it's not going to work. I saw Stephen Smith talking about it today, and when he was talking about it, I was like, brother, we all been saying this forever now. Like, we all know you can't win with the small diminutive backcourt. You know what I'm saying?
Especially my problem with CJ is he is just a turnstile defensively. And if he doesn't bring it offensively, what does he bring you?
Philly versus the Hawks. Joel Embiid can get him some couple more days to rest.
Rest, big man.
Yeah,
and looks
they went and
like
did what
the
they need
Hawks
to do.
are taking care of business so far, 85-71 with about 7 minutes left in the fourth. So, one thing, I'm going to really miss those playoff weekends. Like that first opening round, couple weekends with NBA basketball where it's literally all day. And especially being out here in the West Coast, these games are starting at 11 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, I'm going to miss that. Shout out to the NBA and that playoffs. Really good opening round.
Definitely a great opening round. Also, for the people that didn't like to play in, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I liked it.
It's just the truth. It's the truth, you guys. This is, and listen, when they had that midseason tournament, it's gonna be phenomenal.
Right.
All right. Especially if you're a team that sucks and your team gets hot and you can get a BS trophy like it's some soccer type ish. It's gonna be yeah, dude. But as you just said, it's definitely been phenomenal. To say the least, looking at these playoffs, it's been enjoyable. We didn't talk about the Knicks and Atlanta because basically the Knicks' secret sauce was exposed and Atlanta's doing what Atlanta does.
They had a very nice season, the Knicks, and they should be content with that.
But again, with the Clippers and the Mavs, man, with Luka being hurt, so the Clippers win. But I don't trust the Clippers. Let me ask you this. Who do you have coming out the West right now? Who do you have and or who do you prefer?
I was Lakers until AD went down. I thought that they would still find a way to get out of the West. I picked Denver to beat Portland, and they're kind of my dark horse right now to come out of the West. I like Denver, I think, the most right now. Just because Dallas is, I think, out, and I don't trust the Clippers either. And Utah, I really do, but it's an 8 seed. I like Donovan Mitchell, but is he going to stay healthy? And do they have enough firepower when they start going up against teams that can really score it?
I have to say that I didn't have the Lakers coming out. Once LeBron had that ankle injury and showed that he was hobbled, I was like, no. And I'll tell you this. I didn't know why the Clippers didn't want to jump on the Lakers' necks early and play them while both of their players was hurt. Because you could kind of read that this was going to happen during this series. They was going to keep – AD was going to probably end up getting hurt. Unfortunately, that happens. I'm not trying to diss the young man. I love him from the city. But my whole thought was, if I'm the Clippers, let's jump on LA's ass now while they're struggling and to get them out rather than wait and see if they can kind of rejigger themselves and
get healthy.
And get healthy. So I had them out. I just don't care for the Clippers right now. And this is a team that I want to see win the championship last year. I don't care for the Clippers. I don't think without Murray, Denver can do it. Because they still have so much size when it comes to Portland, and we all know Portland's issues. But when you're talking about Utah having, one of the best records in the league,
they got a front court that can really defend. They can defend.
I think I like Utah coming out of the West, especially you said if Donovan Mitchell can stay healthy. But I mean, and again, he has to play. But when he was out, their record wasn't bad as what you initially would have thought their record would have been. And listen, you putting Jordan Clarkson back in his spot really is the sixth man.
Right.
I like Utah, man. I think I think the only teams that could have taken Utah out this year for me were the Lakers, hands down, because I never know what the Clippers are. So I could say the Clippers, but I want to move them out. But the Lakers and Denver. But with Murray out, I think Denver needs that specialness that Murray brought last year. But even if they didn't get that, they just need him to be a stud at times. And I think missing him is going to be something moving forward. So I'm gonna go with Utah. I think Utah is going to be the team to come out of the West for me.
Give me a refresher. Is Murray out for the rest of the playoffs, or do they think that he could still come back?
I think if he came back, it'd be late. I forgot the type of injury that he had. Murray, I know it was a knee injury. So I can't necessarily. I don't think he's coming back. Let me put it like, I think if it's a chance it's the finals, but I don't even know if it's that. I don't know if he tore his ACL or not. I can't remember initially what he did and why you would ask me if you yourself didn't know.
I thought he was still coming back.
Did you find out what it was?
He's out indefinitely.
Yeah,
as of right now,
he was
after
out.
knee surgery.
Yeah, I thought he was out.
Oh, he did tear his ACL.
I thought so. I wasn't sure. I mean, to me, it sounded like, but it's been so long. But I thought he tore his ACL. So yeah, he's
I like that. Then with Utah, they're like I really did believe if LeBron and AD are playing the whole playoffs that they'll get to the finals. But with AD down, and Chris Paul is basically down too, right? Like we can't really expect Chris Paul to like if that shoulder gets right, I could see Phoenix doing a deep run potentially.
Yeah, good, but how's it going to get right during the playoffs?
Yeah,
as we see, it's going to he's going to keep re-injuring it, and players know to go at him to get to kind of aggravate it.
And my problem with Utah is only if Donovan Mitchell goes down, because I just thought when Memphis played them in that game 1 when Donovan wasn't there, they can be, I think, a good regular season team. I don't think they're a good playoff team without Donovan Mitchell. Like how you're talking about with that Jamal Murray specialness, like they need that. I think Utah needs that Donovan Mitchell.
I totally agree. Listen. I'm not saying, man, Utah can do this without Donovan Mitchell. I'm saying, yeah, Donovan Mitchell is there and playing, and that's why I believe Utah can pull it off. But like any team,
I only bring that up as just, let's say he's not 100%. Let's say he gets Chris Paul territory or LeBron territory, and we see that he's like not playing as well because of some kind of injury, but he can still be out there. I'd really dislike Utah at that point.
I'm with you, but let's look at it. It was he hurt his knee. They sat him out as a precaution and kept him out even longer than he wanted to stay out. It's not like he tore something. Right. I'm not saying that he's 100% by any means, but if he hasn't tore anything and there's no swelling or whatever, he should be fine. It's not, for instance, like Chris Paul, where it seems like the shoulder is popping out to where it's like, oh, like he doesn't have ACLs. We just found out that he didn't have an ACL, but he's fine. But sometimes he's not fine. If you can remember, right. I forgot what the player was that played for the Spurs. That when he got drafted, they found out that his body absorbed his ACLs. His body absorbed the plug they were using to replace his ACLs, I believe, and that he didn't have ACLs. But yeah, I'm just saying that I think he should be healthy enough, and that team from top to bottom, I feel like is good enough. And listen, I know it may not be a ratings bonanza, but when you're talking about deep squads, if you have a Utah versus a Milwaukee, that's a pretty entertaining matchup. You know what I'm saying, in the finals or whatever. Also, it'd be good to get some new blood in the finals, man. Like, hey, everybody, I've been there when my guy was getting up in age, and it was a transition, and actually NBA ratings went down for some years until they could find some stars to replace Mike. But it'll be good. Not to say it'll happen because, this guy's great. I'm talking about LeBron James. But to be honest with you, and I was a person last year, I was like, man, I don't want to see no finals or a Western Conference finals without LeBron James in it when it seemed like, he may be injured then. But this year right now, I'm good if LeBron James isn't in the finals. You know what I'm saying? Like they won last year. You know what I'm saying? Me and you didn't really like how they constructed that team this year.
No.
When people were raving about it, and we were kind of like, I don't see that, right? Now, again, Frank Vogel isn't using Montrezl Harrell, maybe because Montrezl Harrell is showing up to practice not in sweats, but in true religion gear, and it's aggravating.
Every time
the
I
coach.
see him now, I just see your face, like on his shoulder.
Dude, he made
DeJuan
me so
Blair, by the way, was
DeJuan Blair. DeJuan Blair. Listen, he made the fact. I still say this, and this is a brother saying this on another brother, and I like how gully Montrezl Harrell is. But if I'm, what's the Clippers owner's name?
Steve Ballmer?
Yeah, if I'm Ballmer, there's no question I'm tossing out all his true religion on the tarmac, like I've said in the past. The chains. I'm waiting till he's walking on the plane so he sees me flinging that shit out, right? Like
with some kind of Microsoft robot, right? That comes in and just starts flinging it.
Yeah. Right? Like, dude, and again, I shouldn't say that, but it's just from his play in the bubble last year aggravated me because he was somebody I'm like, man, the Clippers had Montrezl Harrell. So again, I mean, and the funny thing is both of those squads, people talked about how they was built, and look, where's Serge been at now? You know what I'm saying? But I'm kind of done. Like, it's the problem where, and I'm not a Midwestern person that's jealous of the coasts, and it's like, nah, man, that's all they care about. Like, yeah, those are some dope teams, historical teams, and I'm talking about the Lakers primarily. But you look at the talent that's on the Clippers and the money. Excuse me. Having the richest owner in the basketball, but I'm tired of the LA narrative right now. I'm cool if we can move off LA for this year to something else in my finals. So I'm cool if we don't have to revisit Lakers versus whoever finals this upcoming NBA finals.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think we both know the Lakers aren't winning nothing without AD because LeBron ain't carrying them.
I'll tell you this: even if AD's back, I don't necessarily just think the Lakers are going to win it. I think when they face some of these deeper teams, you know what I'm saying, that they can be exposed. You know what I'm saying? You're literally looking at, and I'm not saying like you got Mikal Bridges, you got definitely some few other players with the Suns that are just stepping up, but we're looking at their three-head monster being Chris Paul, Ayton, and Booker, right? Booker. And Booker. So I think there's some other teams that have a three-headed monster. And I'm not saying a big three, but they have depth. You know, like for instance, and again, not to revisit it, like if Jamal Murray was there, you look at the depth that a Denver has, you look at the depth that a Utah has, and also coaching. Like I used to love Quinn Snyder at Missouri. Quinn Snyder is doing his dizzle with the Utah Jazz. So again, outside of those ignorant ass fans being rude to Ja Morant's family. That's why I shouldn't have Utah. That's why I should take that back. And that's I
think that's my problem.
Screw Utah.
I still love that. Who was making fun of the Utah Jazz? Like it's just
Vernon Maxwell. Funny. Vernon Maxwell does it all the time. I don't know if you're talking about Vernon Maxwell. Vernon Maxwell
the Jazz, but like jazz is illegal basically in Utah because they hate black people.
Like. Dude, I should revisit that, but I'm just being honest with what I think. Screw some of the fans, but yeah, I think
lot of them.
A decent amount. I think the Jazz are that team, and it's gonna it's gonna go out to Utah.
How are you screaming that word at Ja Morant, and you've got plenty of black players on your team? I never understand that disconnect.
When
I was watching Seinfeld this week, just kind of rerunning. I love this opening one. It was so good. Like when you root for your team, you're really just rooting for clothes. You're not rooting for the player because players come and go. This is all what Jerry's saying. So it's like our clothes are better than your clothes. It's like people just, I don't know. How do you just hate on players? I don't get it.
Well, two things. My favorite show for some years was Seinfeld, and people be like, "You can't get over it." It can never be my favorite show again because anytime Kramer comes sliding into the room, I feel like he's saying the N-word, and I just can't. I haven't really watched the show since. Right? It's just one of those
That
things. It's
is
just
very ugly. I think about it all the time.
So, because and it's funny that you brought that show up, and we're talking about racist remarks. I'll say this: I disagree with that statement. Nowadays, I think most of us root for the players in the uniform because players have switched teams so often that like I wouldn't root for the Utah Jazz as much without Devin Mitchell. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Donovan Mitchell.
Thank you, Donovan Mitchell. I love the Bulls, but my love is different when Derrick Rose was an MVP. You know what I'm saying? Like I had to watch it. I had to be a part of it. You know what I'm saying? This doesn't mean I think to a certain degree you can compartmentalize it. And when your team isn't good or doesn't have a stud, it's like, yeah, it's cool. And some people are like this. Some people like just diehards. One, because of what we do and business we've been in. You kind of get detached from the teams like that. It's not the same for the most part. With me, I disagree. I think I root more for the players. I do root for some organizations just because there were organizations perhaps in my childhood that I liked. But primarily, I think I root more for the players than I do for the laundry. I mean, I love my hometown Chicago teams, but at times it depends on the type of product that they're presenting out there that really engage me and make me be a fanatic, to say the least.
And that's the right way to look at it. We should be cheering the players.
Hey, they're doing the blood, sweat, and the toil. So real quick, before we leave off basketball, today, first it broke that Danny Ainge was thinking about stepping down. Then about 45 minutes. Then 45 minutes to an hour later, Danny Ainge stepped down for being the lead executive of the Boston Celtics. And current, now former Celtics head coach Brad Stevens is moving up into the front office. Brad Stevens, who was having a terrible year, to be honest, with the amount of talent that's on that team. We all know Kemba Walker has been hurt, primarily since he's been a Celtics player over the last 2 seasons. But Brad Stevens, given the talent that Danny Ainge assembled for him, failed. When he had a team that was try hard, and they played above and beyond, he was doing his thing. But when he started getting some guys that had a bit of equity in the NBA, either through their play or their contracts, it seems like he didn't necessarily know how to manage that. You had the Gordon Hayward situation where supposedly he was forcing Hayward into the starting lineup when Hayward wasn't even ready, coming back from injury to take that job away from Jaylen Brown. I believe it was probably Jaylen Brown who had to sit down in those instances, or perhaps it was their power forward at the time. But still, he started off good. He ended badly. Talking about Brad Stevens, and I'm talking about because, dude, Jaylen Brown has done nothing but get better and better the last 3 seasons, and Tatum has basically been a stud since he entered the league. Even though his second year there seemed like there was some regression, but he's definitely has bounced back from that. They got 2 stud perimeter players. You got Marcus Smart, but if we just go back to what they had 2 or 3 seasons ago, he couldn't. And I know Kyrie can be difficult, but he couldn't figure the Kyrie situation out just to get Kyrie to perhaps stay. Maybe if Kyrie's mind was made up regardless. But for Brad Stevens to luck into a promotion when in some ways he squandered the amount of talent that Danny Ainge provided him with is just BS to me. And again, that's ownership, having someone you're familiar with. But I don't even get how you feel that this gentleman has shown you enough to think, oh, yeah, if we put him in the front office role. Now, again, I'm not behind the scenes. I'm sure Danny Ainge was one of the lead people saying Brad, and I know he says he's want to help him and get him up to snuff when it comes to being one of the lead front office people of the Celtics. But I don't know if Brad Stevens has been big in personnel moves over the last few seasons. Anyway, as soon as a head coach, you may have some type of say. But it's just it just doesn't make sense to me when there's people that have done that job, or there have been people that are in organizations under someone doing that job, that they're basically learning to do that job, that you don't even give those people an opportunity. You just give it to Brad Stevens. Now, I don't know if this is ownership wanting a larger say, so they have someone that perhaps they can have more sway over. But just with how, again, I felt like he didn't take care of what he was supposed to take care of as a head coach. For him to get such a nice job is, they haven't given us his title, but it seems like the general manager of the organization. I just think it's BS, man, to say the least.
I think it's comfortability. I think ownership is comfortable with Brad Stevens. Why do the massive search and all this stuff if you really feel confident and comfortable with the guy you have? And I don't disagree with you. I think it's a huge jump. That's not an easy job. And I never like bringing in people that have never done it before. That's a huge risk. And we all know with GMs, you can't evaluate after a season or two. You have to give it a few seasons to really understand the type of moves, the type of team construction they're trying to do, as well as, getting the right coaches and all the other stuff in place for scouting and the infrastructure of the organization. So that's definitely asking a lot of Brad Stevens. I guess being maybe the czar of Butler gives him at least some insight, and I'm sure he was pretty close with Danny Ainge. But I think ownership was just ultimately most comfortable going with Brad Stevens than searching.
Now, I don't know this. My only my thought is this, though. If he doesn't have a good relationship with Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, yes, he's removed from them so they don't have to deal with him day to day. But when times get rough and you don't have a good relationship with your general manager, I think it's a lot easier to walk into that room and say, I want out of here. And again, I don't know his relationship with those players, but I'm on the outside looking in. I would think if he had a great relationship with them, perhaps the team's record would be better, but I could be wrong because both of them play well. So maybe it was on him figuring out how to use their scoring and the defensive abilities to elevate the other players, and that's where he failed at. But I wonder if he doesn't have a great relationship with them, how long they're going to want to be around the team, because now he went from being the supervisor to now he's the head senior manager or director. You know what I'm saying? But again, it may be just barking up the wrong tree in general. Again, I don't know, but it's just something I thought about.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of race relations being dealt with in Boston.
You know, one thing I thought about too would have been funny, and I just thought about this about an hour ago. It would have been real odd had the Clippers, if Steve Ballmer had held on to Doc Rivers one more year, and this had been the year he got fired, and then this would have happened at Boston, and Doc would have been out on the street, and Boston with those two perimeter players would have been attractive. If Doc would have went back to Boston to coach under someone with less head coaching experience than him as the new general manager, is one of the things that crossed my mind in the what if world of NBA. But yeah, you said it. It's familiarity, but that privilege is the problem, to where other people can't get in those jobs because familiarity with, I'm familiar with you. You look like me. You talk like me. There's nothing that alienates me. So let's keep this going. Again, also, I wonder. I don't know if the NBA I think they do have a Rooney Rule when it comes to front office positions. So I wonder, did they do the little throwaway interview with somebody that's already there?
To be honest,
because I feel like
Steve
they asked you
to. The line, Arturas Karnisovas cut the line. They didn't.
No, but remember the Bulls.
Else.
I think the Bulls interviewed other people, because I think the Bulls could say that they interviewed again. Now that's the president job, but them having Mark Eversley there, I think kind of may have covered their ass. But again, it may not be a rule in stone. It may be something that the league wants you to do before they put it in stone.
Well, it would make a lot of sense.
But yeah, so I just it crossed my mind when you see that and you see someone getting a job that you don't necessarily believe that they've earned from the work that they've presented so far.
Yeah, sounds like Butler privilege.
Butler privilege. Clap, 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 clap.
Indiana.
All right, man. You know what time it is, man. Let's go up for grabs with Ryan B. Ski. Ryan, what you got?
So my first up for grabs, focusing on the baseball teams in Chicago, both have entered Wednesday in first place with the first poll marker passed on the MLB season with Memorial Day. So how excited, double excited should either side of town be?
All right, let's start with the South side. Sox should be excited because throughout injuries, throughout having uncertainty with what you thought this rotation may be, yes, you knew you had Giolito, who really hasn't been Giolito for the most part of the season. Dallas Keuchel, who's been a little bit better of late, but still hasn't necessarily been able to give you quality starts as far as going out in the fourth. Lance Lynn has been a stud. Dylan Cease, it looks great.
Lance Lynn is just this year, right? As of right now, they might have to lock him up.
Yeah, but he was like, what? He was 6th in the Cy Young voting last year with a losing team down in Texas. Carlos Rendon just doing nastiness, and then the arms, even though some of them come and go that are in the bullpen. I mean, with the Sox, I mean, even regardless of being frustrated with Tony La Russa, who expected the Sox to be here after the amount of injuries they took on earlier this year?
How Billy about both sides in that regard? My goodness. Chicago's been destroyed with baseball injuries.
And they've persevered, which is also shout out to Jed, shout out to Rick Hahn, and shout out to David Ross. I won't say shout out right now to Tony Russo. Got to do a bit more, buddy. Got to do a bit. Don't vibe kill out here. You're killing the vibe.
You see this ring?
I'm a Hall of Fame person.
I got the jacket in the back too. If you need to see that.
Is that what I know? On the thread, someone posted the actual him actually being like in the squad car or something. I didn't click it. Is that what you're talking about? Is that did he actually say that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. I know he said the Hall of Fame person. I didn't know he said the jacket was in the back though.
Oh no, not the jacket.
Because I'm like, damn, you run around with the Hall of Fame jacket like that.
Well, we all know he is.
I'm gonna show you.
He was just too drunk at the time to remember the jacket was in the back.
Jacket's in the back. The Cubs.
When he was in the squad car in the back, the jacket. I forgot.
Forgot the jacket. Would have got me out of this.
Whatever. Cubs, Jerry will hire me anyways.
The Cubs. I don't know, because I'm fearful for Cub fans, to be honest with you. I think it's great that they're where they are. And I told you this before the season started, that I thought they still have enough talent that they should still be here to be contending in this division. The problem is the lack of control over your players in the future. And are you just going to go for it and do a run this year? I mean, that'd be great if they go, especially if they go deep into the playoffs. And this is the swan song for some of these players. But with not knowing if they're going to sell at the trade deadline, man, I would hate to see some white flag-ish happen to the Cubs. That happened to the Sox back in the 90s. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I'm happy that the Cubs are playing like this. But also I'll say this. I do remember as a cautionary tale, me and DeMaz being on here, and I think this was 2016. If it wasn't 2016, it was 2015. I think it was 2016. And I think we were about here at around this poll mark, as you mentioned. And I said the Sox.
Old, he who should not be named trade?
Yes. I said, DeMar was like, man, the Sox need to go for it. I'm like, dude, it's smoke and mirrors. This isn't real. They need to do a rebuild. Don't do it. You know what I'm saying? Don't not do it. And at the time, we didn't know who Fernando Tatis Jr., who was just playing the Cubs and got pulled for a core strain. We didn't know we knew who he was. We didn't know he was great. And they traded him for James Shields to the Padres.
Was not great.
Yeah, who we knew wasn't. Thank you. Who we knew at that point was not great, right? Was not James Shields
Yeah, this
from
wasn't
the
Big
Tampa
Game
Bay
James
Rays. Yeah,
that it earned him that nickname. This wasn't
right.
Big Game James anymore.
And they went for it in the year that they shouldn't have went for it, and it cost them the most exciting player in Major League Baseball, right? And you know damn well, chances are, Ryan, had they waited by that offseason, they would have started to figure out, damn, we have us something here in this Fernando kid, right?
I mean, he
So
came on fast when he went to
right,
St.
you
Louis.
start. It was listen by the next season, if not after, it may have been a whole nother year. You
Right.
heard
I think
about
that's what it was.
yeah, you heard Tatis Jr., but watch out, right? So that's my cautionary tale for Cubs fans as far as yeah, I want you guys to do well, but I don't want you to do something this year that costs you the future when the odds are you're not going to win the World Series. But in saying that, we know you man with the World Series, the team gets hot. You sometimes you just can't stop them. So
Yeah.
it's a catch-22. You being a Cubs fan, how do you approach that situation?
I think you let this month play out, honestly. Like, where are we talking? They play really well against top-notch competition so far this year. I mean, they have played phenomenal. They were I think they were tied with the Padres, and I forgot someone else for the best record in May. They're 9-1 over their last 10. They just swept the Padres, who a lot of people feel is one of, if not the best team in baseball, regardless of division and league. I think you got to see how this plays out a little bit in a month. Like, what if you're up 5, 6 games in the division? Do you consider at all adding some pitching and going on a run like you just said? That's really risky. That's really risky. Or do you just say we're 5 or 6 games up? Yo, we got to trade these pieces off before it's too late. So this thing can go so many ways. The one nice thing though has been kind of seeing some of the Sox things that have happened to the White Sox for the Cubs. Like when your mean Mercedes was just coming out gangbusters, killing it, and to see a guy like Patrick Wisdom come through and he's not your main Mercedes or your mean Mercedes by any means, but he's really giving you that type of boost that you need, especially with injuries taking you out.
That's
It
a hell
makes
of a
me hope.
name too. Wisdom. That's a tight ass name right there.
Right. And it makes me just wonder if maybe the farm system's not as bad as we thought. Now, obviously, there's not the type of talent, but I look at St. Louis again. When they call up people, they're ready to play. They're usually not one of the best players in Major League Baseball. They're just a guy that can come in and handle the job. And as long as you have enough talent around some of these players, you're going to be fine. And the Cubs, they have the talent. We'll see if they can lock any of it down, but you would think you could lock down Rizzo and Baez, probably not Bryant. So maybe do you just look at trading Bryant? There's a lot that this can go, but I know that at least for right now, you've really figured out the offensive issues with the different pieces. And David Ross is just managing the hell out of this situation. Not to say Tony La Russa isn't either, because he's dealt with a ton of injuries.
Oh, you
But
don't have to do that over on that side.
yeah, I
Let's just
gave a
give
little props.
let's give David Ross his props.
And I think David Ross has done a really great job. I mean, do you trade away Craig Kimbrell? He's a free agent next year. He's one of the best closers in baseball right now. I mean, this dude has been nasty again. They got a lot of tough decisions, but at least what makes me not freak out about it is Jed has guided us to this point, and a lot of questions were on Jed and the team that he built coming out of spring training because they didn't make any changes that everyone thought you must make major changes, otherwise this team is going to flounder.
They made
And
a
so
major
whatever
change. They traded away you.
they did. But I mean, besides that one player, and you wasn't the guy to trade away, it was the position players, right? Because the offense was broken. Well, the offense isn't quite broken, and you know the pitching staff, not the greatest, but there's still hope there with a guy like Adbert Alzolay and some of these younger players, like the bullpen young arms. Maybe there's some starters still to be found in the minor league system. It's a really interesting point, and the big thing I think for the Cubs is for this next month, evaluation. You have to know your players from the major league level all the way down and really evaluate yourself honestly, like you're saying. Do we have enough for a run, which could only last 1 year? And then what do we do if we do that? Or do we start trading away all these pieces because our farm system stinks? Or is our farm system not as bad as we think it is? It is developing. We feel confident that we can go either direction. We just got to pick the right direction for us.
What's that kid's name? Because it seems like he is projected to be a starter for the Cubs. He came
Adbert
up at the end.
Alzolay?
No. He came up at the end. The big pitcher. His name is either, I don't think his last name is Mercedes. He has like a name that's a common name for something else. I don't know if his last name is like Brazil. I forget his name, but he's a biggin with some heat. He came up towards the end of last year. If you could check out your top pitching prospects, I can if you see that, I can tell you his name if you happen to run across it. But I would think he's projected to be a starter. Now, we know sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean when you make it to the big show that you will be a starter. Usually you start off in the bullpen sometimes, and you may just end up in the bullpen because that pitching as long as starters have to pitch isn't necessary for you. You're better off being a guy that's in the bullpen. But yeah, it just crossed my mind when you said that you didn't know about any starters in the farm system, because I know they project him to be a starter.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull that up, but
don't worry about
I think the big thing.
Yeah,
is getting that evaluation figured out of your team and how you want it to be.
As of course, I mean that is the most important thing. But listen, it's great to see that the Cubs are where they are right now, because some Cubs fans like yourself.
This is like getting fun now this summer, and especially when the doom and gloom of all the injuries, and it's like, hey, Eloy might come back, Louis might come back.
I believe it's Braylon Marquez. I think. I don't know if it's. See, to me, he was bigger than this dude. Let me see a full list real quick of Cubs pitchers. He shouldn't be this far in.
I like this commitment to the Cubs prospects by you.
I'm sorry. I mean, I watched him pitch but see, that's one thing about sports in general. You develop a fondness when you watch somebody first come up or whatever. So when I saw him, I was like, damn, that's a big one. And it may be Braylon Marquez, because I thought he was a lefty. I was going to say to you that he was a lefty. It may be Braylon
6'4",
Marquez.
Pretty big.
Yeah, maybe Braylon. But to me,
not muscular, 185, but 6'4".
Yeah, but yeah. So what you got next?
My last up for grabs. What caught your ear from Bears practice today?
By the time you hear this, we got another Under Center podcast out, so listen to this one, then go check that one out. All right.
Assuming this one gets released first.
Yes, it won't. It won't. That won't be out in the wee hours of the morning. The morning cracks. I probably won't have this posted, or we turn this on live till 1 p.m. I may have it earlier than that, but anyway.
But if you haven't listened, get your ass back there and listen to it.
Thank you, Ryan. Some of the things that stood out to me were, one, David Montgomery talking about the fact that he has to step up and be a leader, and he felt like he didn't leave it all on the field. I call BS, and I call this in a positive sense. David Montgomery, you know better than any of us what you left on the field. But, brother, how hard you play, we don't feel like that whatsoever. You leave your body. Listen, I slightly worry about you, how much of your body you leave out on that field, how you refuse to go down. You son, come from the gene strands of Earl Campbell, to say the least. All right, I just don't want your post career to be like Earl Campbell's. But that stood out to me. I said on Under Center, I called BS, and funny, Eric agreed with me when Andy Dalton was talking about the Kumbaya stuff. About, like, I knew these guys were going to draft a quarterback, and it's just like, and it's the first time I thought about this, and me and you didn't go into this. We talked about how we felt when the Bears drafted Justin Fields, but we never said how Andy Dalton felt, because clearly
there's a specific reason why.
But
because
clearly,
we could give a damn what Andy Dalton thinks.
I'm sorry, you're right. But usually but see, I meant it as a joke. That's usually our little club, our little clubhouse. You know what I'm saying? Where we would have thought about that and made jokes about, man, Andy Dalton was probably kicking his dog. Not saying you should kick your dog, when that took place or whatever, right? So again, I like what Eddie Dalton said, and I know he was being a company man, but there's nothing wrong to say, I'm going to do my job. I'm on a 1-year contract. But yeah, I didn't like it. Right. I'm not saying he should have said that. I meant to say, I did say that. I meant to say there's nothing wrong with feeling that you don't like it. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a difference if, for instance, you're a starter, even on a 1-year deal, which you pointed out, meaning that that's not long term, and they drafted a guy in the 3rd round. You know that this season they're looking for you to be the starter, but even next year they may be looking for you to be the starter, or at least give you a prominent chance to start over a 3rd rounder. When a team, and I know he said he knew the Bears may draft a quarterback in the 1st round, but when a team jumps up, because none of us thought the Bears was going to be able to pull that off, right? Especially for Justin Fields. We were like, man, we're going to have to get Mac Jones, right? For them, I just thought I would have loved to be in Andy Dalton. I don't know if Andy Dalton watched the draft or not, but I'm sure at this point, he didn't know what the Bears was going to do. So if he did watch the draft, just think about when you heard dun, 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 and the thing switched from the Giants to the Bears, his heart must have skipped a beat. Like, son of a, he
probably was like, damn, can Jordan Love be in this draft? This dude can't play for 3 years.
Exactly, right? Oh yeah, you definitely. So that crossed my mind. Listen, I know Hub Arcus mentioned it, but prior to him mentioned it, I was like, damn, is it me or is Jermaine Ifedi just felt this? You know what? I was looking at this pictures on the Bears website. They have this thing called Galvanize, where it's this lady, this female reporter, a sideline reporter who grew up in the northern suburbs of Chicago, and she talks about how she loves the Bears. She feels like a kid when she's on the sideline, but she does this boot camp with a lot of ladies that want to get into the industry, where they particular teams, they interview the rookies, and they did the Bears, and all of them said the Bears were their favorite one. And they have a picture for it. The picture of it was all the Bears rookies standing end to end, booked in by the tackles with Justin Fields in the center. So I was looking at the tackles I'm like, them two big dudes, right? I'm like, listen, you know how big Tevin Jenkins is? When you see Larry Borum, you're like, damn, he's bigger than him, right? So when I saw Jermaine Ifedi, I was like, he don't look like them. I'm like, Shawty is really for real. When you talk about Juan Castillo talking about he has a chance to be a Pro Bowler, I'm not saying he's going to be a Pro Bowler, but Jermaine Ifedi is coming this year to play. That dude dropped some weight and talked about what he had to do as a veteran now and keeping his body together. And when he was a rookie in Seattle, how vets told him that he was probably have to do that playing against guys that are 21 and 5 years younger than him. So that definitely stood out. Jermaine Ifedi, Andy Dalton was cool. Matt Nagy was doing Matt Nagy speak. You know what I'm saying?
At least he put to bed that Nick Foles is the 3rd stringer. I was worried he wasn't even going to give us that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm happy he did that and let us know that Justin Fields will be taking those second reps. It makes me think, will they do Nick Foles a solid? On the show, the guys was like the cap hit was too much. But I wonder, are they going to look even more to trade him and maybe sweeten up the pot?
From what I heard, I don't know. I heard a report on sports radio with Nick Foles that they got close to trading back to Philadelphia, but he didn't want to. And maybe that's because he can't, that performance can't be beaten in Philadelphia. So that could definitely be part of it. But I think the speculation was maybe he's just ready to take his paycheck this year and then
ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Maybe so, you know what I'm saying? But hopefully, I don't want to risk injury on anybody, but just hopefully somebody would take his ass. This is how I feel. I mean, I want it for him, but if he doesn't want it, I mean, shame on you, Nick Foles. But no, I shouldn't say that. He's a vet. I remember somebody, I can't remember who, said they was talking to Rex Grossman. Excuse me as I take a sip real quick.
Old sexy Rexy, huh?
And this is when Rex was at Washington. And somebody was like, you don't want to be out there playing? And he was like, basically, at my age right now, please, I'm going to take this check, right? I'm happy being the backup. So maybe Nick Foles is at that point where he's happy to be the backup. One thing, though, speaking of Matt Nagy, preaching about the accuracy and that the ball comes out with Andy Dalton, his pre-snap game, and his ability to predict a player being open, so the ball is out of his hands before that player is being open, and that players better basically have their heads on a swivel and be prepared. And if not, and if they keep failing, they're going to take him out. It definitely made me think of Anthony Miller, right? Like, hey, shorty, that was a shot at
And
you.
bad news, Daz Newsome, collarbone injury, hoping to be ready by training camp.
Yeah, that one was a bad one too. It was good to hear that Eddie Goldman looks good. I need to know what what looks good means when it comes to in shape though. You know what I'm saying?
With some actual pads and hitting.
But there's enough months for him to get, if he's not in football shape. You know what I'm saying? So, and I would hope he wouldn't just let himself go, but who necessarily knows?
Yeah, hopefully, he turned the corner on his conditioning and never looks back.
Hopefully. So I think those were the majority of the thing. Oh, no, there's one more. And we talked about this heavily on Under Center. Jermaine Ifedi talking about how important it was for people to be vaccinated, and then coming out and said, but I'm not vaccinated right now. And I have to get some more information. Not knocking them. But I mean, you asked me what stood out. So that definitely stood out.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah,
hey, get vaccinated, but I got to research it a little.
I got to find out if they playing you. Yeah, y'all need to do it, but hold on. Slow down. So that one was, I think, is my last.
We all should be vaccinated. Jermaine, you're next. Well, hold on. I'm not ready.
Slow down. So maybe he's hoping for the herd immunity. Like, man, y'all doing it.
Maybe he's worried about his swole. If I take this vaccine, am I going to lose my swole and then not be the right tackle?
To play devil's advocate, he has been monitoring what's been going into his body. So perhaps he's like, hey, while I'm doing all this monitoring, I'm just not throwing any type of vaccine up in me or whatever. So perhaps that's what he's on.
How do I know I'm not going to lose my foot if I get this vaccine?
Exactly. But he definitely looked like he was in shape, particularly to be a right tackle. I mean,
that competition level, I feel like on the Bears right now is at a really good spot.
Is he trying to steal left tackle reps? I mean, the guy was. I don't know where you was at, if you could see him, if you got to see Jermaine Ifedi.
I did not.
Okay, make sure you go to the website or Facebook, the Bears website, and check out his interview, because the first thing you're gonna say is, "Whoa, wait," right? Like, yeah,
I like hearing that.
It doesn't listen. It's noticeable. It's just not like. And listen, I'm saying it's noticeable. Like, I was really looking at him out of uniform last year when I wasn't. But still, when I looked at him, I was like, that doesn't look like a tackle, right? Like that. I mean, he's still big, but So shout out to who he's working with. Also, last one, David Montgomery saying that he's working with Chris Corpus on his speed, and that he didn't really know how to run his entire life. Thinking about how durable he is and how hard he is to bring down. If he can improve his quickness. Wow, you know what I'm saying?
Matt Forte, a la Matt Forte.
Yeah, if he can improve his quickness, man. I mean, he's already. I think.
Can we give him the football? That's the only question.
That was a question. So that's the question that we had, and Tony had brought it up. I mean, when Matt Nagy, man, things go right. It feels like Matt Nagy's gonna go away from the run because it's in his blood. But I feel like this, and I didn't say this on Under Center. I didn't say this on the show. I think Ryan Pace is going to come down and be like, slow down, Shuddy. We trying to keep these jobs. If Matt Nagy goes straight Air Coryell on that ass. You know what I'm saying? I think it's like, man, listen, you lucky Virginia let us stay.
Run the rock.
Right. So that was my thought. And that's my worry, I should say, that if the Bears offense is playing the way it is, let's say Andy Dalton or Justin Fields, but the passing game, I should say, if they're getting what they want out of the passing game, do they really use David Montgomery? Because David Montgomery, they asked him, and I don't believe him, about the running back room and how, me and you both said that we wanted more running backs in that room. Thought last year was a shame that they went in there with just Tariq Cohen and Cordell Patterson with David Montgomery. But with Tariq Cohen coming back, with Damian Williams being there, with the rookies.
And Khalil.
With Khalil Herbert.
You still got your Artavius Pierce and your Ryan
That's what I was
Nall.
looking at. Artavius. Is Ryan Nall still here? I thought Ryan Nall was gone.
I thought he was still here.
No, you don't
I'm
have to look up
mistaken on
Ryan
that.
Nall. You don't need to look up Ryan Nall information. I still would hope that David Montgomery is at least getting, and I'm a lowball it, 17 carries a game because he should get 20. But I'm a lowball it.
At
But
least 17.
because I think clearly we know he's a running back that needs to build up a lather. Some guys can just,
and especially he lays the wood. That's going to pay off at the end of the game against the defenders that he's going against.
Yeah. So that's my worry. If Matt Nagy if Bill Lazor can talk some sense into them, if they get off to a good start. We know if they're losing, they'll do whatever they can to stay in the game if they're doing bad. But if they're playing well, that's when Matt Nagy likes to become the crazy chemist.
Right. Run plays. Be you. Let me throw this away.
I can't show my intelligence with run plays. I'm not Kyle Shanahan. So that's my only concern, to say the least.
Yeah, I think it's OTAs. We can't go too crazy, but this is part of the deal. Like first round quarterback competition feels like make or break. Maybe it's not, but like big year for the Bears. Every practice, every time we can hear any type of reportings, it's going to be like this, and it's only going to ratchet up when we get to training camp, especially that first preseason game.
One more OTAs, and then the first mandatory vet practices will take place. So yeah, like you said, we're looking forward to it. Definitely always appreciate everyone taking a little bit of time to listen to Ryan and myself as we talk sports and joke around. Definitely stay safe. Listen to Jermaine Ifedi. And please don't do anything crazy before you hear from us again.